Indeed, a disastrous 2023 as far as climate change is concerned here in Africa. I'm now joined by my colleague Wanja Mungai, who is with me here in the newsroom to tell us more about the reporting. Now, Wanja, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, 2023 as far as reporting and your writing has been, what can you tell us about the impact of climate change and the emerging issues?
Yeah, so 2023 was an incredible year for climate change journalists because we had a lot to cover. We had a lot of natural disasters taking place in different parts of Africa. We had floods across Africa. We had Storm Freddy in Southern Africa. We had the greatest drought and famine in the Horn of Africa in 40 years. And we had torrential rains here in Kenya. So it was a busy year. And so we couldn't help but pay attention to these issues. And so I think the media was also generous in covering climate change. We also had a lot of conferences and events and meetings taking place around climate change in Africa and in other parts of the world. Like here in Africa and in Nairobi particularly, we had the Africa Climate Summit in early September.
Absolutely.
And they just concluded COP28. And so what we are saying is that climate change is so important to us because it affects everything we do. It affects our food security. It affects our security. It affects, our socialization, our economy, our health. And so we have no choice. We have no option but tell stories around climate change. Talking about conferences as well, we had emerging issues in some of these conferences. We had issues like mitigation, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, talking about adaptation, how we adapt to the effects of climate change, loss and damage, the economic and non-economic elements and losses, that is to do with things like loss of biodiversity, loss of culture, loss of life, and all these things. So Nick, these are very complex issues. And what we tried to do as climate change journalists is that we tried to take these topics that are so complex and so scientific from the scientists' hands and now make them so simple and palatable for the general audience to understand.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Wanja Mungai, for the insight. So, Penina, that's all we had for you here. It's been a very insightful year as far as climate change is concerned. At the same time, but more, of course, needs to be done from our end. Thank you so much. And, of course, back to you, Penina.
Nick, thank you very much for that.